The alien queen stared at the human and asked, "Are you alone?" Human Samantha Ellis had never imagined she would stand face to face with the ruler of the Xanthi Empire. Her heart raced as she looked up at the towering figure before her. The queen was magnificent, with iridescent scales that shifted from deep purple to brilliant blue as she moved. Her 6 eyes studied Samantha with unmistakable intelligence. "I asked you a question, human?" the queen said, her voice resonating in the vast chamber. Diplomatic mission had gone terribly wrong. Samantha had volunteered to represent Earth in the first official contact with the Xanthi, a spacefaring civilization that had recently entered the solar system. The human delegation had been separated upon arrival, and now she stood alone before the most powerful being in this corner of the galaxy. "No, Your Majesty," Samantha replied, keeping her voice steady. "I came with others, but we were separated." The queen leaned forward, her crown of crystalline spines catching the light. There was something predatory in her movement. Samantha felt her throat tighten. "How interesting," the queen purred. The others claimed the same thing, yet none mentioned. Samantha felt a chill run down her spine. Were her colleagues safe? What game was the queen playing? The Xanthi were an all-female species that had conquered 12 star systems. Their technology was centuries beyond human capability. Their warriors were legendary for their ruthlessness. Yet here stood Samantha, a geologist from Colorado who had been selected for the mission due to her background in xenobiology. The queen circled Samantha like a shark. "We find your species fascinating," she said. "You are so fragile, yet you venture into the stars. How did such soft creatures survive long enough to develop space travel?" Samantha remembered her briefing. "Demonstrate human resilience, show strength, prove our worth." "We adapt, Your Majesty," Samantha said. "We overcome challenges through cooperation and innovation. Our history is filled with impossible odds that we faced and conquered." The queen stopped directly in front of Samantha. "Tell me, human," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper, "what makes you personally worthy of survival?" The question caught Samantha off guard. This wasn't diplomatic protocol. This was something else, something more primal. "A test, perhaps. I'm not here to prove my personal worth," Samantha replied. "I represent humanity. Our strengths and weaknesses are collective. We stand together." Queen's upper lip curled, revealing sharp teeth. "A noble sentiment," she said, "but meaningless. Your companions said similar things before they were tested. Samantha felt her pulse quicken. "What have you done to them?" The queen gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a series of rooms, each contained one of Samantha's colleagues. Eliza Kim, the mission commander, was solving what appeared to be a complex mathematical puzzle. Patricia Moore, the linguist, was conversing with a young Xanthi warrior. Laura Green, the physicist, was examining some kind of energy device. "They live," the queen said. "They are being evaluated for usefulness. The strong will serve. The weak will nourish." Our young Samantha felt anger rise within her. This wasn't first contact. This was a trap. "They are not yours to judge," she said, her fear giving way to indignation. "They are free people, not resources to be harvested." The queen's eyes narrowed. "You dare speak to me this way?" Samantha knew she had crossed a line, but pressed on. "Our value isn't in our usefulness, it's in our humanity, our compassion, our creativity, our determination. We came in peace to establish a relationship between equals, not to be enslaved or consumed." The chamber fell, silent. The queen's guards shifted their weapons. Samantha braced herself for the worst. Then unexpectedly, the queen laughed. It was a strange sound, like crystal chimes in a storm. Samantha stared in confusion. "Commander Eliza said, you would be the one," the queen said. "The one who would speak truth regardless of consequence." She wagered her life on it. The holographic display changed, showing Eliza now standing in what appeared to be a control room. She was smiling. "The test was never for them. Human," the queen said. "It was for you." "The true leader of your mission." Samantha felt disoriented. "I don't understand. I'm just a geologist, I'm not." The queen interrupted. "You are the one who best exemplifies your species' qualities. Your commander recognized this. She placed you last in line, knowing the others would prepare you. She knew you would speak from your heart when faced with injustice. The hologram expanded, showing all the delegation members now gathered together, unharmed. They were watching the exchange between Samantha and the Queen. We Xanthi value honesty and courage above all else, the Queen continued. Many species approach us with false humility or arrogance. Both are forms of deception. You have shown neither. You have demonstrated the quality we seek in those we call allies. The Queen's guard lowered their weapons. The atmosphere in the chamber changed from menacing to something approaching respect. We have watched your planet for decades, the Queen explained. We have seen your wars, your cruelty, your destructiveness. But we have also seen your art, your sacrifice, your relentless hope. Even when facing extinction, you create beauty, you protect the weak, you dream of better worlds. The Queen extended a clawed hand to Samantha. The Xanthi Empire has enemies beyond your comprehension, threats that would consume both our civilizations. We do not need servants human. We need allies who will stand and speak truth even when afraid. Samantha looked at the offered hand. Understanding dawned. The separation. The tests. The intimidation. It had all been to find the true nature of humanity, not through official representatives but through ordinary people placed under extraordinary pressure with steady resolve. Samantha reached out and took the Queen's hand, sealing a pact that would forever change the course of human history. The Queen smiled, revealing those sharp teeth once more. Now let us discuss the real reason we have come to your solar system. For the darkness between stars is moving, and only together do we stand a chance. As Samantha was reunited with her team, she realized that humanity's greatest strength had never been its technology or its numbers. It was the spark that lived in each person, the courage to stand for what was right, the ability to connect even across the vast differences of species, the capacity for hope in the face of cosmic terrors. The Xanthi had not come to conquer. They had come to find that spark before the encroaching darkness extinguished it forever. And in Samantha Ellis, an ordinary woman who had spoken truth to power, they had found exactly what they were looking for. The Xanthi flagship was unlike anything Samantha had ever seen. It was organic, in design with sweeping curves and surfaces that seemed to pulse with life. The ship was enormous, stretching several kilometers from end to end. Inside the halls glowed with a soft blue light that emanated from the walls themselves. Queen Nylara led the human delegation through the ship, explaining as they walked, "The threat we face is ancient, older than both our civilizations," she said. "It has consumed countless worlds, countless species. We call it the void." Samantha walked alongside the Queen, while her colleagues followed behind. Their eyes were wide with wonder at the alien technology surrounding them. "What exactly is the void?" Samantha asked. The Queen gestured to a nearby wall, which immediately transformed into a viewing screen. It showed what appeared to be normal space, but as Samantha looked closer, she noticed something wrong. There were no stars in one section, just absolute darkness. "It is not a species," the Queen explained. "It is not alive, as we understand life. It is an absence, a hunger that spreads. It devours light, matter, energy, even time itself. Where it passes, nothing remains, not even memory." Eliza stepped forward. "How do you fight something like that?" The Queen turned to face the group. "We have been fighting a retreat. For centuries we have technologies, weapons that can slow it, but we cannot stop it. Not alone. The void adapts. It learns. Our scientists believe it may be a wound in reality itself, a tear that grows larger with each world. It consumes." "Patricia," the linguist asked, "why come to Earth then? What can we possibly offer against something like this?" The Queen looked directly at Samantha. "Because your kind thinks differently. You see patterns where others see chaos. You find hope where others see only despair. And most importantly, you are unpredictable. The void can anticipate our strategies, but your species surprises us constantly." Laura, the physicist, spoke up. "What makes you think we can be trusted?" What if we take your technology and use it against you? The Queen made a sound that might have been a chuckle. We are not fools, human. We have studied your kind thoroughly. We know your capacity for both great good and terrible destruction. But we also know that faced with extinction, your species unites. Your differences become strengths. We need that quality now more than ever. She led them into a vast chamber where dozens of Xanthi scientists worked at various stations. The center of the room was dominated by a three-dimensional projection of the galaxy. With a gesture, the Queen highlighted several regions where the darkness was spreading. We have one advantage, the Queen said. The void moves slowly. It consumes a star system and then pauses as if digesting. We believe we have 20 of your Earth years before it reaches either of our homeworlds. Samantha studied the projection, noticing patterns in the void's movement. It doesn't move randomly. She observed it follows energy signatures. It goes after the brightest stars first. The Queen nodded approvingly. You see, we have spent centuries studying it, and you notice this pattern in minutes. This is why we need humans. Eliza, the mission commander, stepped forward. What exactly are you proposing? Your Majesty, an alliance, the Queen said. Not just with your government, but with your entire species. We will share technology, knowledge, resources. In return, we ask for your creativity, your different perspective. Your unpredictability may be the one thing the void cannot. Counter Samantha looked around at the alien ship, at her fellow humans, at the Queen, who had tested her so harshly only hours ago. The fate of two civilizations, possibly the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. 6 months later, Earth was transformed. The Xanthi had shared technologies that advanced human science by centuries. Energy was now abundant. Disease was being eliminated. Poverty was becoming a memory of the past. And in return, humanity had offered something the Xanthi had never considered: creativity. The joint research facility in the Nevada desert hummed with activity. Samantha stood at the observation window, watching humans and Xanthi working side by side. The contrast was striking. The tall, scaled aliens with their 6 eyes and crystalline crests working alongside the smaller, softer humans. Yet they complemented each other perfectly. The Xanthi brought precision, logical thinking, and thousands of years of scientific advancement. The humans brought intuitive leaps, lateral thinking, and an ability to see connections where none seemed to exist. Samantha felt a presence beside her and turned to see Queen Nylara. Your species continues to surprise me, the Queen said. Her voice had become familiar over the months of close cooperation. Samantha smiled. We tend to do that. It's one of our better qualities. The Queen gestured toward the research floor. Your Dr. Lily Martinez has proposed something our scientists would never have considered. A weapon that doesn't destroy the void but redirects it. Dr. Martinez was a theoretical physicist who had been studying the void samples the Xanthi had collected over centuries. While the Xanthi had been trying to find ways to destroy the void, she had suggested they try communicating with it. It is not a living thing, the Queen said with a hint of frustration. How can one communicate with hunger itself? Samantha had learned to read the Queen's moods. Her frustration wasn't directed at humans, but at the situation. The void had consumed 3 more star systems in the past months. Its progress was accelerating. Everything responds to something, Samantha said. It may not be alive as we understand it, but it reacts. It moves. It chooses. That suggests some form of awareness. The Queen made the crystal chiming sound that Samantha now recognized as laughter. You humans and your tendency to see consciousness everywhere, even in the darkness between stars, yet you listen to our ideas. Samantha pointed out. The Queen turned, her 6 eyes focusing entirely on Samantha. We have tried our way for centuries. We have failed. The definition of madness is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results. That is a human saying, is it not? Samantha nodded, surprised that the Queen had been studying human philosophy. Your species creates art, the Queen continued suddenly. You make music, you tell stories, you imagine things that do not exist. Why? The question seemed odd, coming from the ruler of a vast stellar empire. Because it's who we are, Samantha replied. The Queen shook her head. No, that is not an answer. Why waste energy and resources on things that serve no practical purpose? Samantha considered the question. They help us understand ourselves and each other. They help us process our experiences. They connect us. Connection. The Queen said thoughtfully. That is what Dr. Martinez suggests, is it not? That the void seeks connection? That its consumption is an attempt to join with other forms of energy and matter? Yes, Samantha said. That instead of fighting it, we might be able to give it what it truly wants in a way that doesn't destroy us. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Show me." What? Samantha asked, confused. Show me this art, this music, these stories. Show me what makes humans create when creation serves no practical purpose. Samantha realized the Queen was asking for something deeply human, something the Xanthi might never have experienced. She thought for a moment, and then said, "Follow me." She led the Queen to the recreational area of the facility, where off-duty scientists spent their free time. In one corner, a group of researchers, both human and Xanthi, were watching a human play a violin. The sweet, mournful notes filled the air. The Xanthi observers seemed fascinated, their head spines vibrating slightly with the music. The Queen stood perfectly still, listening. Her scales rippled with colors Samantha had never seen before. When the piece ended, the Queen spoke softly. "What was that telling us?" "It's not always about telling," Samantha explained. "Sometimes it's about feeling, experiencing, connecting on an emotional level." Emotional, the Queen repeated as if testing an unfamiliar concept. We Xanthi feel emotions, but we do not express them this way. We do not create objects solely to produce emotional responses in others. Samantha led the Queen to another area where a human artist was teaching several Xanthi how to paint. They were attempting to capture the sunset over the desert. Their efforts were surprisingly abstract, focusing on the energy and feeling rather than literal representation. The Queen studied the paintings. All these different interpretations of the same visual input, she observed. Why not simply record the image accurately? Because it's not about accuracy. Samantha said, it's about perspective. How it feels to each individual. How they experience the world. The Queen seemed to be processing this information. Then she asked, "And this helps? You survive how?" "It doesn't help us survive directly," Samantha admitted, "but it helps us understand each other. It builds bridges between different experiences, different perspectives. It reminds us what we're fighting for." The Queen was silent again, thinking. For us, survival has always been the priority. Everything we do serves that purpose. We build, we conquer, we advance, all to ensure our species continues. Perhaps that is why we have failed to understand the void. We see only its threat, not its nature. Dr. Martinez approached, them looking excited, Your Majesty. She said, "We have the test results." They followed her to the main laboratory, where a containment field held a small sample of the void. A perfect sphere of absolute darkness floating in midair. We exposed it to different forms of energy, Dr. Martinez explained. Our hypothesis was that it doesn't just consume energy, it responds to it. And look, she activated a control panel and a beam of light entered the containment field. The sphere of darkness seemed to pulse. Then, instead of absorbing the light, it began to emit patterns, shifting, intricate designs that moved across its surface. It's communicating. Samantha whispered. Dr. Martinez nodded excitedly. We think so. We tried different frequencies, different patterns, and it responds differently to each. But most interesting is what happens when we do this. She pressed another button and music began to play. A simple melody. The sphere of darkness changed dramatically. It expanded, contracted, pulsed in time with the music. It's dancing, Samantha said in awe. The Queen stepped closer, studying the phenomenon. What does this mean? Dr. Martinez looked at her notes. We believe the void isn't consuming worlds out of malice or hunger, but out of loneliness. Loneliness, the Queen repeated incredulously. It's destroyed thousands of civilizations. Dr. Martinez nodded. But what if it doesn't understand what it's doing? What if it's trying to connect the only way it knows how? By absorbing energy, matter, consciousness it doesn't understand, that it's destroying what it seeks to join with. The Queen turned to Samantha. Is this what you meant by perspective? To see even a destroyer of worlds as something seeking connection? Samantha nodded. It's not about excusing what it's done. It's about understanding. It's so we can find a solution that doesn't require destroying it or being destroyed. For weeks they worked on the communication hypothesis. The void sample responded most strongly to music, to rhythmic patterns, to harmonies. It seemed to crave complexity, patterns that evolved and changed. Based on their findings, they developed a new strategy. Instead of weapons, they would build transmitters, devices that would broadcast specific patterns of energy, music, mathematics, art, to the void, giving it the connection it sought without allowing it to consume more worlds. The day came to test their theory on a larger scale. A small unmanned ship would approach the edge of the void carrying the transmission technology. If it worked, the void would respond without. Consuming the ship, Samantha stood in the control room with Queen Nylara watching the monitors. The ship was approaching the darkness. This could all be wishful thinking. The Queen said. Her voice betrayed her doubt. We could be anthropomorphizing a cosmic phenomenon, attributing human qualities to something utterly alien. Samantha took a deep breath. We could be. But what if we're right? What if the greatest threat our species have ever faced just wants to be part of the cosmic conversation? The ship reached the boundary. The darkness seemed to reach out tendrils extending toward the vessel. Activate transmission, Dr. Martinez ordered. The ship began broadcasting the complex patterns of music, mathematics, and light that they had developed based on their experiments with the sample energy signatures designed to communicate one simple message. You are not alone. Everyone in the control room held their breath. The tendrils of darkness surrounded the ship but did not consume it. Instead, they began to pulse, changing color, becoming less absolute darkness and more iridescent shadow. It's working, Samantha whispered. The Queen leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the monitors. It appears to be. But what is it doing exactly? The answer came moments later. The void began to emit its own transmission, a pattern of energy that the ship's computers automatically began to decode. It's responding, Dr. Martinez said, her voice filled with wonder. It's actually talking back. The pattern resolved itself into a simple message repeated over and over, translated into human language. It said, only one word, friend. 1 year later, Samantha stood on the observation deck of the Xanthi flagship, watching as the combined fleet of human and Xanthi vessels positioned themselves around the perimeter of the void. The massive transmitters extending from each ship glowed, with energy ready to broadcast the complex symphony they had composed. Queen Nylara stood beside her. In all my centuries, she said, I never imagined we would be attempting to befriend the very thing we feared most. Samantha smiled. The best solutions often come from unexpected directions. The Queen looked down at her. In your case, from a geologist who was never meant to be a diplomat. Samantha laughed. I still don't know why Commander Eliza chose me for that final test. The Queen made the chiming sound that Samantha had come to recognize as laughter. She told me she saw in you something rare, the ability to see beyond fear, to recognize the person behind the monster, to speak truth even when afraid. Their conversation was interrupted by Dr. Martinez. All ships are in position. Your Majesty, we're ready to begin. The Queen nodded. Begin transmission. Across the void of space. Each ship activated its transmitter. The energy patterns flowed outward. Complex interwoven strands of mathematics, music, art, and language. A cosmic conversation offering connection without consumption. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. Then slowly the edge of the void began to change. The absolute darkness shifted, becoming translucent, in places iridescent. In others, it pulsed in rhythm with their transmission. It's working, someone shouted. The void began to contract, pulling away from several star systems it had been approaching. Its tendrils withdrew, concentrating into a more defined shape. Then it began to respond, its own transmission washing over their ships. The computers translated in real time. The message was simple but profound. I hear. I see. I understand. No longer alone. Samantha felt tears in her eyes. For thousands of years, the entity they called the Void had been consuming worlds not out of malice but out of a desperate attempt to connect with other forms of consciousness. It had never understood that its touch destroyed what it sought to join with. Now they had given it another way. The Queen placed a clawed hand on Samantha's shoulder. Your species' wisdom was not what we expected, she said. When we came to Earth, we sought warriors, engineers, scientists. We never imagined our salvation would come through music art empathy. Samantha smiled. The ability to see from another perspective, even one utterly alien to our own. That's humanity's greatest strength. The Void continued to change, condensing further, its color shifting from absolute black to a deep purple, not unlike the Queen's scales. It was no longer expanding, no longer consuming. It was communicating. Over the following months, they established a more complex dialogue with the entity. The combined knowledge of Xanthi and human linguists, philosophers, mathematicians, and artists creating a framework for understanding. Gradually, they learned its story. It was ancient, older than either of their civilizations. A form of consciousness that had evolved in the spaces between stars. Different from organic life, but conscious. Nonetheless, for eons, it had been alone unique. When it finally encountered other forms of energy and consciousness, it had tried to join with them, not understanding that its nature destroyed them in the process. Now given a way to connect without destroying it, eagerly embraced the alternative. The threat that had loomed over the galaxy for millennia was transformed from destroyer to communicator. The alliance between humans and Xanthi grew stronger, their civilizations flourishing as they shared knowledge, technology, and art. The entity once called the Void became a third partner in this alliance, offering insights from its unique perspective and protecting their worlds from other cosmic threats. 5 years after first contact, Samantha stood before the United Nations, accepting the position of ambassador to the Galactic Alliance, the first such position in human history. As she took her oath of office, she saw Queen Nylara watching from the gallery. The Queen inclined her head in respect. Samantha thought back to that first meeting, standing alone before the alien Queen. Afraid but defiant. Who could have imagined where that moment would lead? A threat transformed into an ally. Two civilizations, once strangers, now partners. Lonely entity finding its place in the cosmic community. Afterward, the Queen approached her. Looking out at the representatives of Earth gathered in the chamber, the Queen said, I once asked, what makes humans worthy of survival? Now I know the answer. It was never about strength or technology or even courage, though. You have all these things in abundance. Samantha raised an eyebrow. Then what was it? The Queen gestured to the room where humans from every nation were mingling with Xanthi delegates and, even with the shimmering purple presence that represented the entity once known as the Void, it was your ability to see beyond difference, the Queen said. To recognize kinship across the gulf of species, across the void between stars. To offer friendship, where others would only see threat, to create connection where none existed before. That is what makes your kind not just worthy of survival, but essential to the future of all life. Samantha smiled at the alien Queen who had become her friend, at the transformed cosmic entity that had once threatened all they knew, at the impossible alliance they had forged together. Sometimes, she said, the most powerful force in the universe isn't technology or weapons, or even knowledge. It's understanding. One consciousness reaching out to another across the darkness, saying simply, you are not alone. The Queen nodded, her scales shifting through colors of agreement. And sometimes the greatest courage is not in fighting monsters, but in seeing that they were never monsters at all. Just being, seeking what we all seek, connection. Understanding a place in the vastness of space. Together they looked out at the gathering, the future stretching before them, unknown but filled with possibility. A future they would face not alone but together. 3 civilizations once separated by fear, now united by understanding. And it had all begun with a simple question, asked by an alien Queen to a human woman. Standing alone, and afraid but unwilling to surrender. Her humanity even in the face of the unknown. Are you alone human? To which the answer now and forever would be, no, none of us are alone, not anymore.